Hi and good morning, or good afternoon, depending where you're located. My name is Kevin Green. I'm a registered psychotherapist in Ontario, and what I'm going to be talking about today is how to put more structure into our lives, given what's happening with COVID. The title actually of what I prepared for today is called Dealing with the Unknown, Structuring the Unstructured. I had hoped to be able to share a couple of slides as I went through, but Facebook doesn't allow for sharing of your screen and then going back to it again, going back to a live feed. So I'm just going to do it like this. Um, so, as I'm sure everybody's noticed, the past few months have been very different than what we're used to. And the reason is because of COVID 19, the pandemic that we're all experiencing right now. And one of the biggest problems that it's caused is uncertainty for people, uncertainty for adults, uncertainty for kids. And what hopefully we'll go through over the next 25 minutes or 20 minutes today is a bit of an understanding about why structure is important and actually how we can put structure back into our lives. This is especially important, I think, as we're going into the summer, where some camps have been canceled, others haven't been. For those that might still wind up being canceled, what do kids do for a summer when there aren't any planned activities? How do you get your kids to control their anxiety during a time when it's very natural to have higher anxiety? So, what I'm going to go through today is talking really quickly about anxiety and COVID 19 and just how this is a little bit different than anxiety just in general and other times we've had anxiety. The importance of having structure and also how to create structure in our lives. If it's possible, I'm going to ask the Parents Unite people to post my PowerPoint on their website. In that way, um, hopefully you can actually see a bit of what I'm going to be reading off of as we go through this. So, number one, just as a starting point, what is anxiety? So, anxiety typically, outside of some causes that are just genetic, anxiety are thoughts and fears. So, it's thoughts and emotions around the future. It can be around things in the future that we know are definitely going to happen. It can also be around things in the future that we either think might happen or really we have no clue. And that's a really good tie into what's happening with COVID because right now there's a lot of unknowns in the future. So when we look at it at the micro level, the future is hey, tomorrow's Monday, so the kids are going to wake up. Depending what school you're in, there may be teaching, there may not. Um, but nobody really knows what to expect through the day. Kids, might have an hour of work, and then they wind up with the rest of the day, which is really unstructured. Parents, we all have different degrees of how much we're able to help our kids in terms of structure, in terms of activity. We all have, or a lot of us have our jobs. Some people, unfortunately, we've been cut back because of what's happening, which causes another source of anxiety for us. But there's just lots of unknowns, and I could probably spend an hour just going through the unknowns. And if this was an interactive session, we could have a great conversation about what are the unknowns that are unique to you versus what are unique to me. So, um, with regards to COVID 19, there are some additional factors which are making things worse. Number one is isolation. The fact that you're being told not to see people, right? Outside of maybe at the bottom of your driveway and you're at the top. And that includes parents, that includes grandparents, that includes your kids' friends, that includes your own friends. It's a really tough time. We're a species that's very social. We live in groups and typically we live in communities and we rely on each other in order to get through difficult times. And this is a difficult time where that key ability of ours, that key need of ours, has kind of been taken away. And structure can help with that. Um, there are so many unknowns, and I mentioned a bunch of them before, right? What's going to happen with work? If you've been laid off, will you be hired back? If you're still working, will your hours be cut? Will your wages be cut? If you're self-employed, what will happen to the clients that were coming before and now they're not coming? For kids, will they have camp? Will they not have camp? If they don't have camp, what are they going to do? If they do have camp, how is it going to look? Are they going to be able to go swimming with their friends? In Ontario, the overnight camps have been cancelled, and the day camps, some have been cancelled, some have not. For those that haven't, what's going to happen if they actually do carry forward? And again, for kids and for parents, this is a really stressful period to go through. Just things like going to the park. while Ontario has allowed parks to be reopened, in Vaughan, where I live, the parks are still closed. So again, it's a way to meet people that's been taken away from us. Sources of exercise, right? Having kids go to the park and play on the apparatus, even if they're just by themselves, is not allowed right now. So again, there's lots of unknowns, and it's hard to get through them. What I call cabin fever, the fact that we're just home a lot, that we can't go anywhere, that adds to the stress, right? It adds to the anxiety that we have around COVID right now. Um, Hopefully we get along with our families, but day after day we're seeing the same people. Day after day we're interacting with the same people. We're getting along, we're fighting, whatever's happening, but it's always with the same people. And you can even take that one step forward and say that every day is the same day almost as the one before. That there's just so much repetition, so much day after day after day of the same thing happening over and over again. It can be really hard for people to deal with it. And there are so many unknowns. And again, that's the definition of anxiety. It's unknowns and uncertainties about the future. Um, it's a problem. So why do we need structure? Basically, if anxiety is the fear and uncertainty about the future, what structure gives us, very simply, is a way to predict the future. It's a way to know what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen later today, what's going to happen next week. Um, Nothing's perfect. Even if COVID wasn't happening, there are still a lot of times that there's things we're not going to know about. But what structure does is it gives us a bit of a framework that we can work within, we can live within, in order to keep our anxiety and our stress levels lower. Structure can be also detrimental in some ways. So, for example, if you know that you have a meeting with your boss on Tuesday and you know it's not going to be a good one because there's a problem at work and you're being held responsible for it, that's not necessarily a good thing. But overall, structure is very, very important to us. And in the file that I'm going to provide, there's a great link which talks about anxiety and structure and the importance of structure. It's on the elite. You know what? I'll just send in the file later. Or I can post it, just the link on its own. Too much for me to read. Um, Structure, allows us to plan. It allows us to predict. And if you put yourself in the shoes of a child, and by child I mean 18 and under, um, having a structure lets them predict. So it could be that they're in grade 12, they're getting close to graduating. Right now they don't know what's happening. People are being assured that universities will open in some form, that grades will count. All this stuff is being said, but we still really don't know exactly what it's going to look like come September. You're in grade 8 going into high school. There's a lot of uncertainty there. What's high school all about? Am I going to be actually in class? What's the new school? Will I like the new school? Like all the stuff that would normally happen anyways. And now there's an entire layer on top of it of, will the schools even be open in September? If not, how am I going to go from the school system that I'm really used to a semester system where now I'm going to have 4 classes every day, they're going to rotate, and all of a sudden I have to deal with that, and I've never been prepared for it. And not only that, but since March I haven't been in school. um, there's lots and lots of things going on for teens, for younger people, for older people, that is hard to get our minds around because we just don't know. um, so how do we create structure? um, there's 5 ways that I'm going to talk about. None of this will probably sound earth-shattering. There's nothing that you probably wouldn't say to yourself, hey, I know this. But sometimes being reminded of it is a good way to actually implement it in a different way than you might already be doing. And as I go through this, if these are things that you're doing really well, congratulations. I can tell you that as I was creating this, I was making a list for myself and my family where I think we need to do better. I'll get started on that. So number 1 is a daily routine. It's really easy for us to say, hey, we're home, there's no need to wake up at a certain time. I would argue that having the same or similar bedtimes that you and your kids would have had in the past is really, really important. Having the same wake up times. Maybe you wake up a bit later now because there's no need to commute. That's fantastic. But still try to get up, try to get your kids up at around the same time every day. What this does is, first of all, it helps their bodies and your body keep in a routine if you're not in one right now, and mentally hey, bedtime say is at 11. If you have older kids, it's 10:30. Now their heads are going to start getting into a sleep mode. They know that bedtime is approaching. So psychologically, it's very, very important. Meal times, as much as you can, try to have meals at the same time every day, as much as possible. And this is advice I'd be giving people anyways. Eat meals together as a family, and don't bring technology to the table, including the parents, when you're having meals. Or if there's times during the day that people are on different schedules just because of school or work or whatever, that's fine too. But try to still have the fixed schedule for when different things happen, even if the schedule isn't the same for everybody. School time. So if your kids are in school, or maybe you're in school, you're doing a part-time program or something, try to dedicate the same time every day or throughout the week, whatever days make sense, to doing schoolwork. My kids, one is in grade 7, one is in grade 5, and when they wake up in the morning, our schedule is they have to be out of bed by 8:30, 9 o'clock. Before they get onto technology with their friends, they have to do their schoolwork. So they log in, they see what's there. If they have questions, they ask their teacher, and they try to get through the work they're supposed to do. Nothing's perfect. We do have our days where things don't work. So I don't want anyone to think that this is easy. But by putting in the structure, you're not saying to your kids one day, hey, do this, and then in another day, hey, do something else. It's the same. It's repetition day after day, and that's really, really important. If you have a child who's a special needs child, so for example, children with ADHD or ADD, children on the autism spectrum, children with anxiety already, right? If your child has previously been diagnosed with anxiety or has symptoms of anxiety, it's really, really crucial for them to have the structure in their lives. They thrive much, much better when they know what to predict than when every day is a mystery. Um, Showering and a bathing schedule. It sounds like, like these are things that we may not always think about, but now that we're just home and there's no social interactions, personal hygiene may become less important. I'm not suggesting that everybody has to shower, 20 times a day and all that stuff. Like definitely we should be washing our hands more often, especially when we're outside and have any interactions with other people or go shopping. But if your kids know, let's say in the past your schedule was once every 3 days that your kids have to take a shower or whatever it happens to be, keep to that schedule. If it's every day, keep to that schedule, right? Again, it's structure. It gives your kids and you a sense of what to expect as they're going through their day and their week and their month. And by having an understanding of what to expect, again, tying it back to just what anxiety is, you're taking some important steps to hopefully reducing the level of anxiety that your children and you are experiencing. This is one that parents would love to see done better, I think, is chores, right? Having chores for your kids to do. So some of it may be in place already. Others maybe it would be worth talking to your kids about and get them part of the discussion. What can you add to what they're doing right now to help give structure? So, for example, sleep specialists will argue, and I agree, that kids should make their beds, that we should all do it. Because what that does is it signifies, hey, we're awake now. The day is starting. And then at the end of the day, when you turn your bed down, it's in your brain, you're getting the feeling, hey, it's bedtime now. I'm approaching sleep time. So little things like that. It could be making sure that laundry is put into the laundry basket every day by a certain time. Other things that kids probably, I would argue, should be doing anyways, when they're finished eating, put their dishes either on the counter, in the dishwasher, whatever, stuff like that. But make sure your kids know what their responsibilities are. They're probably not going to like it at first, but it's important that they have some sort of structure of activities that are also important for them to do, just in a general sense. Depending on your family structure and how you do things, you can make it part of a reward system so that instead of the chores being a source of stress, that they're thinking into the future and saying, oh no, in an hour I have to go make my bed or whatever. Now it could be, hey, if I make my bed every day this week for 5 days, let's say during the week, I get $5. I get a point. I get whatever it happens to be for your family, and I'm happy to work with you to put together systems like that. But you can make the chores, you make the structure they may not want to do into something fun and into something that they actually see the benefit of, in their own lives. And then, as a great side effect, hopefully, is a lowering of anxiety in general. To-do lists. So at the beginning of the week, and this is something I don't do and I need to start, is make a to-do list, both for yourselves and for your children. What are the things that have to get done um, on a specific day? So it could be that on Wednesday, there's certain things that week that have to get done. So you write it down. Make sure everybody can see it. The tasks have to be, of course, age appropriate. So I'm being sarcastic when I say this, but 4-year-olds should not be using the stove. But make sure that you have a list of what you need to do, because there's nothing worse than at the end of the week saying to yourself, "Oh no, there's stuff I should have done and I just didn't get to it." Now you have more anxiety about the future because these are things that'll still have to get done. And by having the list, even if you don't get to everything on your list, chances are you'll get to some of it, and then the future anxiety, the causes of the anxiety, are hopefully reduced. Screen time is a big problem nowadays. It's also can be a good thing. In our family, we were about 2 weeks away from imposing some pretty strict rules around screen time because our kids were using it too much. And then came March break and Corona. And now, as parents, we have a big dilemma. If we were to limit our kids, say, to 2 hours a day of screen time, that means that they only have 2 hours a day to actually interact with their friends. For us, that's not acceptable. Our kids need to have time with their friends. So what we're doing instead is having things they have to do first before they can get to the technology. So it's school. It's in the evenings if they have to take a shower. All that stuff. After dinner, they have to do their bedtime routine before they can go back on technology. So again, we put structure in. And over time, we're probably even going to put something in now that the weather's nicer for screen time to limit what they do. My advice to you is find something that works for your family. Find activities outdoors that your kids like to do. What we did, and this may not be doable for everybody, we went to Canadian Tire and bought an above ground pool. Just whatever would fit into our backyard. It's a lot cheaper than the camp for our daughter that was canceled. And it gives our kids activities, a way to be outside and away from technology during the summer. Other families will put up basketball nets. You can buy a hockey net. They're relatively inexpensive. And just if your kid's into hockey, have them just shoot on the net. Things that you can do at home that don't require traveling and going somewhere else. But again, going back to screen time, I think it's important that kids are allowed to still have interactions with their friends. I would encourage using technologies like FaceTime, Skype, Zoom if you have it, whatever, because that gives you the face-to-face contact, which is really missing when kids are playing video games. So if they're playing Fortnite or Roblox or whatever they happen to be into, typically their game and their conversation is focused on the things happening in that game. And then the rest of the world that they would normally be talking about is missing. By having the face-to-face interaction, it gives a lot more communication. The nonverbal communication comes through a lot clearer. And I think more importantly, it'll open up discussions. It could be, if they're teenagers, talking about girls or boys and dating and all the normal stuff, whatever's good for them. And by not doing just talking through a video game and actually seeing each other, it's hopefully more of a natural conversation. Separating the weekday from the weekend. So even though things really aren't different, and I mentioned earlier that I started calling every day same day, part of structure could be still having a weekend, making sure that activities are different. So it could be that Monday through Friday, your kids have to make their beds and do all that stuff, and then on Saturday and Sunday they don't have to. You can just tell them, don't worry about it. It's a weekend. Relax. Bedtimes can be different on the weekend. Food schedules can be different on the weekend, right? It could be something like you say, hey, this weekend we're going to have more junk food. So when you're doing your shopping, however you do your shopping, your kids could be part of that and say, hey, buy me Doritos. I'll have Doritos this weekend or throughout the week, whatever. But by having the separation like we would have had in the past between the weekday and the weekend, again, it's structure. It helps our brains have less anxiety. There's more that we understand about the future. There's more certainty than we would have had otherwise. So I've only got about 2 minutes left. I hope that if you wind up watching this, I hope that it's been useful for you. I can be reached at kevin@hhcw.ca by email. On Facebook, my practice name is Health and Happiness Counseling and Wellness. And my phone number, if you'd like to reach out, is 416-613-1259. My focus is I work with families, and I'll work with any age, but my favorite, my passion is to help children. So anyone over the age of 10, teenagers, helping them get through anxiety. I'm hoping over the next few weeks I can reopen for face-to-face sessions. The government is allowing it. I just want to make sure that it makes sense. To open and then cause safety issues for people is not what I'm looking to do. Um, and I would meet people online regularly. I started last summer, so well in advance of COVID. And if you feel that you'd like to talk, I'm more than happy to be there for you. I offer all new clients a no-charge 30-minute consultation. This is the way they can see if I'm hopefully or potentially a good fit for them. And if I'm not, I'm more than happy to help you try to find the person who actually is. So thank you very much for your time today. It's about 1 minute left in my time, so I'm going to log out. Have a safe weekend. Have a safe month of June. We're almost at the end of May now, which I still can't believe. And if there's anything I can help you with, please feel free to reach out. Thank you very much and have a good day. Take care.